This is Fam Electric Ghost, and we're live on the air for the first time with Cathy Introligator for the first time. Welcome to the Fam Electric Ghost podcast. How you doing today?
Good. Very fine. Thank you, Sam. Thanks so much for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Want to let people know there's a couple things going on. We've got a new thing called a QR code. It's up on the screen, and that actually links to your website, mypolygotlife.kit.com. And so people can use their phone right now or any device where they can do that on a tablet. They can scan that and they can check that out while we're talking. Just want to let people know that's available. It also is a link on the bottom that will be available once the podcast is fully published. And we're live on LinkedIn and YouTube at the moment. So before we get to the start of your story, go through your whole story, I always have to ask every guest a couple questions. What motivates you and why do you do what you do?
I think my main motivation is to bridge gap between cultures, and my contribution to that bigger mission is through languages. I'm a language coach, and what I like beyond the technical skills of the language is finding out, discovering new things about cultures, sharing about my own cultures. That's what I'm hoping to do.
So we're going to talk about how to leverage neuroscience to learn a language. And I'll just give a couple of disclosures of my what I do. Like in my day job, I'm a software developer, I'm a podcaster, and I'm a musician. So I got to wear like three hats: left, right brain, trying to use the creative side of my brain, and then the logic side of the brain. And everybody knows with AI today. I mean, it's like language modeling is what AI is. That's what the tech is doing. It's actually taking human language and applying it to software design. So it's interesting, like how that applies to how human beings can think about the neuroscience of it. How did you get into neuroscience and language? This whole topic, this whole area.
Yeah, so languages and traveling cultures have always been a passion of mine, but then life took me to other places. And after learning the language of baking and training people to learn from scratch, learn on the job, I realized that there's more to learning than just the theory and getting degrees, diplomas in things. Like you can learn in various ways. I trained so many people, very different people, all kinds of profiles. And when I decided to change career in 2017, I thought about my skills and my passions. And naturally, language teaching came on the list. But as long as I can remember, I never wanted to be a teacher. Like being in school, doing the traditional things that I've known at school, I was like, that's not for me. That's not what I want to do. And then one day I discovered language coaching, which is a more collaborative approach. It takes from the principles of business coaching or life coaching to help learners get into that process and feel good about what they're doing and achieve their goals. And then I discovered also Rachel Paling, who's the creator of the neuro language coaching approach. And this gave me extra tools to help learners because everybody learns in a different way, and knowing about what's going on in the brain and how emotions can throw us off and prevent learning, to me, it's essential to know how the brain learns to be able to learn anything, really.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense because I think a lot of times people are stuck in the box. I mean, I'm living in America, and we tend to have this kind of in the box thinking. We tell everybody they want, I've worked in corporate America, and they say they want out of the box thinking, right? But then they put you in the cubicle. And then they have all these structures that are not like very welcoming if you're neurodivergent, if you have a different way of learning, if you've got if you don't fit in the bell curve of how things work. They're like, oh well, it's not going to work for you. It's not going to work for us. So it seems like you're looking at the individual and saying, hey, now everybody's going to fit in the box, and maybe we should try to understand other ways of thinking and practicing.
Yeah, and because the system is generally not going to help you, as you said, the box is very strong. So we need to empower individuals to take those opportunities and get what they need without relying on what's offered to them that may not fit with their needs.
Yeah, because it's a really important thing because if you think about like emotional safety and obstacles to fluency and language instruction, it's kind of because of the box. And
Mm-hmm.
then people say, well, bureaucrats and politicians and people who are like, more like actuaries and accountants, they don't think about what you're talking about. They don't go into like the critical thinking of, oh, that doesn't work for everybody. Well, it works for 80% of people, so it doesn't matter. And so when you start to actually look at individuals and not have a cookie cutter approach, then I think that's kind of like, wow, that's revolutionary. But it really is, I think, human beings I probably have known this forever. It's just that we've done things for convenience.
Yeah, yeah. When you think about it in the past, how Socrates used to teach, it was very much learning by doing and receiving knowledge, but also critically thinking about it, applying it, testing it, making mistakes and learning from it. And we kind of lost all of that.
Yeah, I think the problem I have is like the perfection trap.
Mm-hmm.
Being a musician, we can run into that, right? A musician sometimes will be trying to get something perfect, and it's really whatever they think is perfect in their mind. And
Yeah.
everybody around them might not even know what they're trying to get, right? So they'll do 100 takes to get to something that they can't really describe, and then they'll go back and rethink it. And it's like, oh, take number 4 was really what I tried to do, but I didn't know that till I hit take 100.
Right.
you know,
Yeah, it's the same with language. Like you have to experiment and try different things until you can find your voice and your way of speaking that you feel comfortable with. And that takes it's like wisdom. It takes a while. We get there until we're a bit older in life, maybe.
yeah, and making mistakes is not the end of the world. In fact, if you're an artist, it's like that's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes, like what you intended to do is not what the piece needed. It's kind of like the happy accident that happens, and you go, "Oh, that's the direction I should go."
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like if you try to overplan or overthink, like as a musician, people will see it like that doesn't seem authentic. That seems forced. Doesn't feel natural. So it goes to like how do you get into a flow state but also be directed and actually still like hit kind of somewhere in the target but not maybe exactly in the target.
Yeah, that's where I was going to when you explain the process, the musical process, and that flow state. It connects to language as well because we have two, pretty much like in music. You have like the technical side of it, the chords and everything. You need to learn to make music, but also the everything else that's in your brain, your creative side, and everything you want to express. And they compete. And when we're too much, the thinking side is more on the front of the brain, and the flow state is like this interconnection of all the parts of the brain. The information travels really fast, and we need to get into that state when we speak a language to forget about the mistakes and to focus on communication and expressing ideas. But the way we've been taught in school to focus on the technicalities of things, it prevents us from being able to reach that flow state. And I guess it's the same with music. Like you can stay stuck in the technicalities and kind of forget the creative spark
Yeah,
behind
it's
it.
like I always point out like the difference between a classical musician like and a fusion jazz artist. A fusion jazz artist is willing to let go of
Mhm.
what is on the page. Like they're not that they both can read the music. It's just the classical musician, if something's not on the page, they have a hard time just dynamically shifting in the moment to something unexpected. Where the fusion jazz musician, if somebody changes in midstream in a live performance, it won't stop the show. They'll adjust to what they hear. And I asked, like, what key is in it? What chord? Like, why I didn't practice that. So they have a hard time with that kind of dynamic. It has to be kind of written, and so it's a matter of like both of them are technically advanced, but one of them is more tied to the page. It's tied to the sheet instead of tied to the moment.
Yeah. And everybody can learn to be a fusion jazz musician speaker, I guess, like fusion jazz inspired speaker. But it takes a whole mental process and work to be able to let go, as you said. That's the hardest part, I think, in language, is learning to let go and just flow in the language.
Yeah, it's like the comedian that knows when they're bombing. They adjust in the moment. And versus
Exactly.
somebody that maybe is reading off a teleprompter, right? And they see that it's not working, but they still read off the teleprompter. Like they have their prepared, everything's prepared, but it's not working.
Yeah.
The comedian knows, they can feel that. They immediately go to something different. The
Yeah,
person
and
on
you
the
lose the
teleprompter,
connection in those moments. They
yeah,
lose the connection with the person listening, and that's a missed opportunity to maybe be vulnerable. Vulnerability is super important. That's how we grow and
yeah.
help
And
out each other.
being authentic is really tied to your vulnerability. And
Hmm.
some people are like, it's a safety issue. Kind of, we'll go back to the idea of safety. People will stay to like, they put their 10,000 hours in. You got certain structure, grammar, the rules, certain structures, right? And then suddenly that gives you a lot of confidence. You can feel safe in that. If you start to go towards something that's a little more, "Well, I don't really understand it. I don't know if I know this, but I feel something." But you're not confident that you really know it, but you're not willing to wade in that water because you're scared you're going to drown.
Yeah, I think that emotional safety and the mindset to be able to experiment, and that's how the neuroscience can help. It can help in different ways. Neuroscience, for people who feel anxious, who suffer from anxiety or other or some kind of learning disability, knowing about neuroscience and how their brain learns will help get to those 1,000 hours or 10,000 hours of practice. They won't abandon, they won't give up before they get there, because they'll find ways that works for them. Usually that's what happens. Like, some people, they just give up because we haven't found the right way, the right key to unlock their brain and help them acquire all that technique, those skills and the mastery. And then another way neuroscience can help is emotional regulation, working on the stress, also working on perfectionism, or how you respond to other people's critiques, judgments, and such.
Because a lot of times, like, everybody has a filter,
Mm-hmm.
so what you hear somebody say might not be what they intended or actually what they said, because as soon as you hear some trigger,
Yeah,
right, that goes into your mind, and your mind's like, well, okay, I know what this is. Sometimes you don't hear the rest of what they said. You just
absolutely.
immediately pick up on like, oh, this is what they're saying. So now I'm just in response mode. I want to win the conversation. I don't like what they're saying. So like, you don't hear it. And if you go back and you're like, if you go and say, hey, what did you actually mean by what you said? Instead of like escalating and responding and saying, well, you said this and this and this means that. I think a lot of people get caught in that. It seems like there's a lot of communication difficulties today, like polarization we see all over the world, because I don't know if people are really hearing each other.
Yeah, often they do not. Also, when you throw in intercultural misunderstandings or different ways of expressing things, it's even harder to communicate clearly. But that's also an opportunity. As a foreign language speaker, you can ask clarification. Okay, you said that, what did you mean? And then we can turn what we perceive as a bad understanding of the language, we can turn this into an opportunity for better communication by just clarifying everything, putting everything out there on the table, and asking to maybe simplify the language so that everybody expresses like the no hidden messages that imply that no one gets.
Yeah, the subtext is always hard because some people that's how they communicate. They kind of talking in subtext or talking in code, and it's on purpose, right? And sometimes maybe it's unconscious. And
it's a very cultural thing too. And the French language is context rich, so you need to get all the details of the sentence and know about, okay, they said that, in reality they meant
you meant something else. Because it might not be direct. So not everybody's direct, because being direct can be dangerous or feel unsafe. So you put the subtext in, you put, it's like, well, maybe some people will miss it when other people won't, and it's safer for me if they miss it. And some people don't miss it.
Too bad.
But it's interesting about in terms of like how people learn. Like you're talking about the Socratic method. I went to a college called Bowdoin College, and we had the Socratic method. We had a lot of blue book kind of written exams, not multiple choice, not SAT type, oral exams, because it really forced you to like critically think and take what you learned in the semester, and can you critically think and apply it without going through like A through E? Can you actually explain it in your own words? And I don't know if today it seems to be we're kind of not doing the Socratic method as much. We're not doing the critical thinking. We're not doing oral exams. So if people are just practicing to the test without really actually understanding the topic, how much do they really learn? Did they just totally forget everything after the test? And how valuable is that?
Yeah, you've just wasted a tremendous amount of hours just learning things to forget it after 24 to 48 hours. And that's the case with in language learning, vocabulary lists that you learn just for the test, and those set sentences. We have to do that sometimes because people have to pass exams for like immigration, or there's a lot is at stake. They need to pass those exams. They have a short time to prepare, and so they're learning like a robotic way of speaking with sentences they don't fully get, but they'll put in their speech on the day of the exam just to get the points. Are they really learning how to learn the language, to speak the language, and how to be confident in the language? No, because they don't understand what they're saying. So to me, it's ridiculous, and there must be better ways to evaluate someone's proficiency and encourage like a more durable language learning.
Seems like we get to the idea of like holistic, like which we, holistic, like in medicine and learning and all that things, is more like if you have a wider range, right? That you're not just so like focused in a lane, and you can look at whatever's going to help you get over the hump. I mean, what's going to get you to actually learn it, right? And not just do what you just said, just pass the test for that day. But can you actually apply the knowledge? Like when you're learning, I'm in software design, and we have to learn logic and, a lot of algorithms and understand what these algorithms do, right? In real practice. Like if you just did it for the test, that's fine. But like when you're in the real world and you're in a JAD session, you're on the whiteboard, you're talking to people in an engineering session, you have to know what you're talking about. You have to understand what it means. And it's like every day you have to apply it. And that really is like, you got to do it. You actually have to do the work. And if we don't give people real world examples, like, if you teach kids calculus and trigonometry and geometry, right, and you don't really show them what it means in the real world. I had a teacher that actually showed me what the physics meant in a video game. Like they showed me like this physics calculation, when you see it applied to this video game, then this object that's moving, when they hit something, it responds in such a way. Then the kids in that class, we got the concept. But if it was just on the page without applying in the real world, We didn't know what he was talking about. But when you actually saw it in practice, then you were like, oh, that's what it means.
Yeah, that's the first condition of learning, for the brain to actually put in the effort, because it takes an effort, it takes energy, and the brain does not like to waste energy to engage in work that is not needed. So you need to have a need and understand, okay, why do I need to learn that thing? Why do I need to understand that concept? In what way is that useful to me? And if you want to have a chance at sustainable learning that's going to last for years and years, even if you don't practice much, it's still going to be there buried under some dust, but you can reactivate it. But only if your brain thinks that this piece of information is relevant to your life, to what's around you, to help you make sense of the world or communicate or fulfill some other needs, vital need.
Yeah, it goes but to the idea like when you go to school, you should learn how to learn.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so like in like what I do in engineering and in music, like I'm constantly learning new techniques in software and in music, looking at different artists and their approaches. And you realize you're never really done because there's always some master in something that you can't do, right? And what you could do is like, well, I'll never actually hit that mark exactly, but I want to learn that approach.
Mm-hmm.
And knowing that you're not done until you're not here. A lot of musicians, like, we don't stop playing until we can't play anymore. We don't stop trying to push it, unless you get stuck, being a cover band, then you're just playing the same thing all the time. But if you're somebody that's like, I want to learn, like, what's this new technique? Like, how did Mozart do that? How did Chopin do that? How did this artist do that? And then you're constantly understanding that, like, you don't know everything and you're not really done. And I think
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the way society teaches is they think like, oh, you got this degree, you're done. And then you
Yeah.
don't realize you need to keep on upping your game.
Exactly. Also, one uh, step learners get stuck in the learning process. There are 4 stages of the learning process. Most learners don't even know about it, and they think. First of all, they think that, for example, let's take language. They think those 4 steps of learning apply to the whole language. So the 4 steps are, the first step is you don't know what you don't know. So you're thinking, oh, it's not that hard. I can learn. That's what I did. I can learn Japanese. It's not that hard. Let's try it. You don't know what you don't know. Then you start learning, and it feels good because as a beginner, it's the easier thing. So you learn faster and you feel good about your progress. And making mistakes is normal, you accept it. But then after a while, you keep studying and studying. And you get to that part where you realize everything that you still don't know, and you're facing that, as you said, that lifelong journey of never ending learning, and you feel discouraged. You can hear all your mistakes and you don't know how to fix them, and you have to learn new things to keep moving forward, and then you get discouraged. But then if you keep on going, then you reach that stage where you can flow in that technique, that skill that you learn. You can just use it without thinking. Like, we all learned how to walk, how to ride a bike, speak a foreign language for myself. And they think, okay, it's that whole process for the language, but they don't realize they have to do it for every single little brick that constitutes the language or the skill that you're trying to learn. So if you're talking about music, I'm sure there are many moving blocks
Yeah.
and
Yeah, there's so much that
and
you
you have
can
to
like.
redo that whole process.
Yeah, I mean, because if you think about like technology, it's
Mhm.
exponentially in tech. We exponentially change the base, the foundation all the time. Like, the foundation of AI tech is not exactly what mainframe tech was, right?
Mhm.
It's like exponentially just leapt. It went so far above what the mainframe tech was.
Mhm.
And so like if somebody that knew tech in the 70s, they're an expert at what they know on mainframes, and mainframes are still exist. and so they could do very well, but it's not anywhere near what the AI is doing. And so, like, and it exponentially changes all the time. The equipment changes, the tech changes. So you constantly have to relearn or learn new things.
Mm-hmm.
Or you get people I've met. There's a well, I'm a mainframe guy, and they don't want to get into, you know, the blockchain. They don't want to go into the AI. They just say, "Well, no, that's too much. I'm going to stay in my comfort zone." And so I think that's what maybe people do in any type of situation. They say, "Well, that's a little too much for me, so I'm going to stay with what I know."
Yeah. And there are maybe two tips to help people move away from that mindset, not staying stuck in the despair and discouragement. First thing is to learn how to recognize your successes. It's okay, I can do all of that. I don't have to think about it anymore. When I introduce myself, when I order coffee, yeah, I'm great at doing that. Okay. Next thing, yeah, I'm good at doing that. And then you keep going one step at a time, celebrating the successes to keep you motivated and make you want to experience that feeling again. But if you want to experience it again, you have to learn something new. So you're always learning something new, a little bit harder, but overall you're progressing. And I forgot the second, I lost my train of thought, but for the brain, yeah, it's good for the brain. Like if you want to live a healthy life with like keeping dementia away for a longer time, always learning is essential. Social interactions and learning are the two best things you can do for your brain.
To keep the brain active. What do you think about like immersion? Like if you go, like I lived in Japan for 2 years, and because I was there, I had, if I want to get in a taxi, I had to learn how to tell the taxi driver where I want to go. And then if I go to a store, I had to learn, like, well, how do I ask for something? How do I ask questions about this product? So when you're in the society, you're forced to do it. If you're just reading it like in theory, like you're in a classroom and you're doing it for an hour or 2 or 3 hours versus being in the country or it's like what does the immersion actually make it easier for the brain to learn it versus the class?
It does. To me, you still need both. Like you need some kind of explanation or keys for your brain to make sense of things. But immersion is essential. Whether you're in the country or you're creating your own immersion at home by listening to podcasts, music, reading in the target language. This is like you should be spending at least 80% of your time immersed in the language in any way you can to feed your brain. We were talking about the flow state and all this information stored somewhere in your brain that you don't really know where it is and how it comes out. But the immersion is going to feed that part of your brain, and that's what's going to help your fluency and making the right choices. You don't have to study certain points of grammar because you heard it so much that it feels natural. So you have to study less. But I lived in Japan for a year as well. So I got decent at daily life things, ordering at a restaurant, talking about my life, where I'm from, what I'm doing. I can do that. Anything beyond that stretches our abilities, I think
It's harder. Yeah.
we need some kind of guidance
Yeah.
and help.
Sensei's got to help me.
Yeah. So
Yeah, I
it's
remember
really a mix of both.
Yeah, cause I had a teacher. Like I was in a business setting where I actually had an interpreter and a translator, and I had a headset on all day. And my interpreter translator was sitting next to me all day too. Plus, I had classes, and my daughter was going to a Japanese kindergarten and preschool at the same time, and my wife was learning. So we're all there in Tokyo, like we're getting assistance. I mean, actually, companies gave me interpreter translator, so I'm seeing in real time the translation between the English and the Japanese in my ear. And then I'm going to class, and then I'm actually on my own time. I'm going in taxis and going to play, going to see shows and just trying to immerse myself. I was like, hey, I'm not going to go to the movie theater and watch the movie in English. I'm actually
Yeah.
going to go watch a kabuki theater, right? I'm going to
Mhm.
go to the music scene and watch a Japanese band or
Mm.
Japanese orchestra, or I just watch Japanese TV, no, not go watch
Mm.
CNN. Actually, for that's what I ended up doing because I was like, well, I'm here, I should do it.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question though about that? Because you're working all day, like full-time job, family, and when you go back home, you still want to watch Japanese TV and do all these efforts, but sometimes our brains just get tired and we go home and we're like, "Oh, please give me some English. I want to relax."
Yeah, I did have, I had some, like I would watch 24, the show, American show.
Mm,
I bought it on DVD and I would watch that.
right.
But I would go and watch the Japanese TV because I actually liked it. I mean, before I came to Japan, I was really into a lot of Japanese culture. So I was watching a lot of anime. I was reading manga. So I was already kind of predisposed to liking the culture. And since I was there, I said, well, I'm going to watch more anime and more manga. I'm going to watch Japanese TV shows. I was watching these cop shows and dramas, and I just, it helped me, and I was interested. So it
Yeah.
maybe my case
Coming back
wasn't
to the
the same.
motivation and
Yeah, as somebody
your
else, it's like,
interest.
well, I wasn't really into it. If you weren't into it, then you wouldn't probably have gone unless you wanted to try something different.
Yeah. Yeah, I wasn't that much into it. So it really shows the power of motivation. And that's why we should um, promote that motivation or find a source of motivation for the kids at school before trying to teach them, force a language or make them learn. Spark their curiosity about the language or the culture, and then from there they will be motivated, they will do what it takes to learn, because they learn naturally because they just interact with the language, the speakers, and the culture.
Yeah, it's like the way you're talking about the 80-20 rule of like listening and receiving over active production. Maybe you can kind of talk about what that means, like when you're talking about the 80-20. I think we've kind of talked about it, like you referred to it a little bit.
Yeah, that's what I said about immersion being essential, as much immersion as you can, and then
Mm.
just a little bit of guidance and theory to make sure you don't misunderstand something, or that you think this means A when in reality it means B, and then it creates confusions with the native speakers.
Yeah, can I remember like it was interesting in Japan. There's like English, like when I started to see how people like English can be confusing because of like the way it's structured, the grammar,
Mm.
and like the Japanese sometimes were having trouble understanding some of the English. Like we would write something in English in a paper, in a report, and we would get it translated to Japanese, and even the translator interpreter would kind of misinterpret the English and
Mm-hmm.
have it mean
Wow.
something totally different. And then we ended up, because we were dealing with science and logic. We started using flowcharts that
Mm-hmm.
were more logical and didn't have extraneous stuff, because we would see these Japanese documents and they'd be a lot smaller than our English documents. They wouldn't actually have the length, right? Because the Japanese sometimes will pack a lot of meaning into
Mm-hmm.
the way the language is and not be as verbose. So we said, maybe we should use these technical flowcharts to actually describe these logical things instead of trying to put it into a paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you put it into a paragraph, it was being misinterpreted,
Yeah.
and they were pulling things out of it that weren't there, or assuming things that weren't there. So when we actually made it very logical and it's like, yeah, it's going here, it goes yes, no, this, that, it made it very clear that what we were doing was fully understood.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I like how you all approached this situation. Instead of having everyone thinking, oh, what you're doing is strange, what you're doing doesn't make sense, you tried to find a way to communicate across the language and the cultural barrier. And you came up with something creative to actually improve the situation without thinking, oh, I won't learn anything. I'm set in my ways. And that's what language learning is doing, is just expanding your perspectives and how you envision things. It helps you think outside the box, actually.
Yeah, out of the box is like kind of the zone I like to be in. It's kind of my art left brain, right brain. When you're an artist, you tend to kind of lean into that vulnerability or their willingness to go somewhere where a lot of times if you're an artist, you'll do something and then it's like they're when people receive it, they don't know what to think about it because you might not do what's been done
Yeah.
before. So as soon as somebody sees it, somebody they don't know how to take it or they'll not like it. And so your willingness to expose yourself to criticism might be at a higher level than a person who's like tries to stay safe. You stay safe, you won't say the thing that's going to say, "Well, what are you talking about?" Like you're like, "Well, I don't want to cause that kind of controversy, so I'm not going to talk about it." Where an artist will be like, "I am going to talk about it. I am going to go there."
It is very courageous.
Yeah, it's hard because I can understand a lot of people like they've been taught like you don't want to stand out.
Mm.
Like standing out is like that's dangerous.
Yeah, it is. Especially in France, we don't like to expose ourselves to the judgment and criticism of others.
And that kind of goes toward like you said. There's a lot of subtext. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
that allows you to give to maybe say it, knowing that not everybody's going to get it.
Yeah, and we're also what's also downside for language learners. We're not showing positive emotions either. We're very toned down compared to Americans who
Mm.
the cliches are, oh my God, it's amazing. Like sharing and expressing, being very expressive about good
Oh,
things.
kind of
French people
throwing
are
it.
very, not bad.
'Cause- yeah, because you don't want to let it. You don't want to give it away.
Yeah. So even if you're speaking French really well, we'll be like, yeah, it's not bad. But you could, I mean, you're still making mistakes, but you're doing okay. It's a French person being very supportive and showing their approval of what you're doing.
That's interesting. Yeah, because like you have to get into the cultural aspects of any language. And I remember in Japan, there's like the etiquette for like if you're an elder,
Mm.
if you're like older, or if you're a man or you're a woman, you're a child. There was a certain like level of etiquette in terms of like your gender and your position in society, and how you say something based on who that person is in society.
Mm.
Where sometimes in America, I mean, it's there, but it wasn't as deliberate. I think,
Yeah.
it's not as structured. It seems less
Yeah.
structured.
It also exists to a lesser degree in French than in Japanese, but it also exists. So some cultures have to, rethink the world in terms of hierarchy or age difference and how to interact with different people. It's less horizontal than the American society. So it can be very challenging, and you always fear. That's also how I felt in Japan. You always not sure whether you're behaving appropriately or doing something offensive.
Yeah, because like, am I actually speaking in the right, doing the right etiquette? Am I disrespecting this person? Because I like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. In America, it's like, oh, hey, Bill, how you doing? And like, you're not supposed to do
Yeah,
that.
but we're a bit more like, we know that foreigners don't necessarily have all the codes, so we don't get offended. Don't
Yeah,
worry.
well, yeah, the Japanese were like, well, you're a gaijin, so you're like, it's okay, because we know you don't know.
Yeah.
So like, I give you a little bit of break, but if you're there a while, then they'll start looking at you like, well, you've been here like 2 years. You don't know
You
that.
should know by now. Yeah. You have like, you can make mistakes, but you should learn from your mistakes within a reasonable time frame.
So, like the roadmap of trying to move, you know, in this idea of safe spaces, um, to um, to actually practicing, because a lot of times people they don't feel like they have a good environment to actually practice like
Mm.
what they need to do, and so if they don't have a place, the safe space, like how do you get them to like, well, how can you get to a safe space?
Yeah, that's a big question, and it really varies. So there's one myth I'd like to talk about first. Maybe is the myth that you have to speak from day one. Like for some people, they learn, they output, they have input, they do output, and they can speak from day one without feeling threatened or blocked. But for some people, they have that silent phase where they need to acquire a lot of knowledge before they feel safe to speak. And then when they're ready to speak, often you hear, well, find a conversation partner, go to a group, those free conversation groups in your neighborhood. Maybe you have a French conversation group there. But for some people, this may not be very productive because they won't feel safe. So the easiest, most obvious option to find a safe space is to work with a teacher, tutor, coach, whichever style you prefer. So starting with one-on-one, face-to-face, building your confidence, getting reassured that you can be understood, and also working a lot on your listening comprehension. Because if you're able to speak, but when someone replies, you're like, oh my God, what did they just say? Then the conversation stops and you feel bad, and the other person feels bad because nothing's happening. So work on your listening comprehension and then slowly build up your speaking skills one-on-one with 2 people, 3 people, slowly expand, especially for some profiles.
No, like with people like during like COVID and the lockdowns, a lot of people went virtual. A lot of people started doing like, like video webcams, like the way we're doing this podcast. Does that actually work, or do you have to be in person? Or different people's styles learning? Some people can do it, and some people have a hard time with it.
Yeah, depends on the person. For language instruction, teaching, coaching, all that can be done online. I only work online with my clients, and it's never been a problem. But also myself, when I take language lessons, I don't mind meeting with my teacher online. That's fine. But if I'm going to participate in a language exchange, I like sitting with a real person in front of me in a coffee shop, in a park, having a walk, just having that real interaction. So it really depends. Some people are fine with having a language exchange partner on the other side of the world that they're never going to see, or that they're going to see after 5 years, like very special trip. Really depends. But both, there's no right way to do it.
Now, because I'm into tech, I'm going to go into like, what do you think about AI in this space and the tools that are being put out there? Because a lot of things I've run into, like a lot of tech bros that have this idea is like, well, AI is going to replace everything. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll tell me, I'm going to replace the musicians, going to replace actors, it's going to replace engineers. What are your feelings about like the human element and versus the AI element?
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot of, well, I use AI in my job. I help my clients use it as well. It's a fantastic assistant. It can be a conversation partner, help you create exercises, summaries, give you ideas and examples of texts and things. So it's a great tool, but I don't think it will replace humans. First, because it's still making too many mistakes. Whenever I ask an AI to create a resource or an exercise for my clients, I always have to double check, sometimes redo the whole thing because they're not accurate. And I've seen, like in the last few days, we've seen like Rosalia is everywhere with her new single with, I don't know how many languages she speaks in that album, but a few languages. Also the mayor of New York, who went through the trouble of doing clips and ads in Spanish, speaking in Spanish. It's not his first language, of course, and he had to practice a lot. So I think we still value the human to human interaction, and we get something different from our failures and imperfections compared to AI to AI.
Yeah, because you just take, Mondami's voice and run it through AI using his voice and have the AI say it versus knowing that he actually went to practice and do it. there's that human element of somebody actually took the time to care to do it
Yeah,
versus using
exactly.
a tool with my voice pattern to do it, right? And then
Exactly. Yeah.
maybe when you do that, it has mistakes because it does, like, has hallucinations and messes up. I mean, AI is only, it's typical data. It's like garbage in, garbage out. It's like whatever it learned on is what it knows. If you didn't teach it all the intricacies of language, if you didn't teach it all the different variations or things that are possible, it only knows what it knows or what it
Mm.
can find. So if you don't teach the rules clearly or it doesn't understand things that are in the gray area or colored a little bit differently, it has a hard time with that, and it's gonna mess up.
Yeah. And also coming back to artists and neurodivergent people and people who learn in a different way, AI is very standardized. It's like, okay, you should do this and this and this to learn a language.
Hmm.
Yeah, in general, all these rules work. Do they work for me? Do they
Yeah,
all work for me? What kind of mix works for me? We still need qualified humans to help us with that.
yeah, that's always the big fear I have because, like, in artistry, neurodivergence is an asset.
Mm-mm.
And the
Yeah.
problem with some of these tools that we're given as artists, like I have a lot of tools, technical tools to help with my music, and some of them they're very cookie cutter, right? They're not. If you're somebody that's on the outer edges of the bell curve, it doesn't really do it, right? You'd
Mm.
be better off just kind of just doing it yourself manually because it is trying to put you into a lane,
Yeah.
and that lane is, in music is like micro timing and being a little off tempo or being off tonal is part of your asset. It's kind of like that
Mm.
is kind of like the painter, like the brushstroke. It's not perfect. It's not supposed to be perfect.
Mm.
When you have tools that are computerized, they try to make too much perfection in a thing that needs to have a little needs to have a wider range.
Mm.
It doesn't have a wide enough range, and sometimes it doesn't hit the mark. And I think that's where people they miss the boat. They say, "Oh,
Yeah.
it can do it," but what is it giving you? It's not giving you what the human would do. It's giving you
Yeah.
something
Yeah.
that seems
Yeah.
passable, but it's not what you would really do.
We have the capacity to produce a lot of mediocre,
Yeah,
non-original
or
things, but
junk food things.
then,
I call it
yeah,
junk food art.
yeah, yeah, yeah. But then the actual human-made art gets lost in that
Yeah,
quantity
if
of
you
concrete.
change if you build like a billion junk food images, and then you have 1,000 artistic human
Mm.
derived images, and you throw them out into the ether, all the junk food things are overwhelming the authentic, vulnerable human stuff. And then the
Yeah,
algorithm might be saying, "Oh, this is getting 1,000,000 views," and then the original art only got 100 views or 10 views. So then you're letting the marketplace stamp out originality in terms of like pushing like mediocrity.
yeah. That's why it's important to, in some ways, like use what we can as tool, but still use our brain and human connections to make sure those like real art and and human interactions continue and are nurtured for the future.
So, like in barriers of like the most crippling barriers for people that you've learned or experienced, and maybe like what are your strategies to get beyond it?
Yeah, I think one of the main one is the stress, of course, like the stress to make mistakes. But mistakes are a part of the process. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn because that's from the misunderstanding with someone that you're finally going to remember that word or find how to express what you need. So I think the first step in all language learning is getting over that barrier of the fear of making mistakes. Then you can work on your grammar and getting better at things. But first, you need to be out there and be okay with being vulnerable.
Yeah, I always find in art the happy accident is not really a failure. it's actually like an asset. Like if you're a poet and like you're planning out your scheme, your rhyme scheme, and then suddenly you're like, oh, you come up with something that's like non-standard, and they say, well, maybe I don't have to be in this scheme. Maybe I'll actually do something different. And you were thinking you have to be wedded to the canon structure, and then you find out like maybe I don't. Maybe I can go and do something different. And it's in that happy accident that you discover like I don't have to be locked into this. I could go with X or Y or Z. I don't have to do ABC. And I think that's how it's like it's not like maybe you didn't you could say it was a mistake, but maybe in reality it wasn't. It was a learning experience.
Yeah, and mistakes are only like grammar mistakes. It's like cosmetics. Like it's not really important. What is important is the communication and either getting what you need or making like a connection with someone. And you can, if you never take that step of making mistakes, then you'll never get to that point where you can have fluid and like fluent interactions with other people. So instead of focusing on every single mistake, let's focus on the bigger picture of why we're doing it and what's the reward for it and how can we get better. I mean, we can still work, but it's a lifelong process, so one step at a time.
Yeah, if you can actually communicate what's in your heart and your soul, kind of your spirit, and whether or not you had the correct grammar, if you actually can communicate and you didn't keep it inside and you let it get out into the world, like you're saying, you could always correct the grammar, right? You could always fix it. But if you don't actually speak that truth, no one's going to hear it.
Yeah, and you could help someone too. You never know. You might be traveling to a place, everyone speaks English except that one person, and if you speak their language, you could help them and be that link between them and the world. There's nothing more heartwarming than being able to help people who may be stuck and feel isolated. You can be a bridge with the world.
Yeah, you have to not take it like, oh, everybody's going to look at me. It's kind of like with the people, like you're in a classroom and you're a kid and like nobody wants to raise their hand because they're scared that the answer they give is going to make them look silly or make them not be thought of highly. And really, learning is about like you need to like let people know where you are, so that the teacher can help you. If you don't say, then the teacher has no idea where your head's at. The communication needs to go both ways, so the teacher just hears like an ocean of silence.
Yeah,
well, how
that's why we have. Yeah, that's why you have so many bad habits and traumas inherited from school. Also, traumas can, whether like family or intergenerational or from school, can also have an impact on the ability to learn a language, either because the brain cannot learn in a standard way or because the stress to speak up is just too high. So
too
then,
high, yeah, it's like the price of admission's too high.
Yeah, that's a big topic to work on.
Yeah, and that's always the big rub. You have to always push it, and it's hard because everybody, like even the people who think they're pushing it, there's always something that everybody's scared of something. Everybody's a little vulnerable on something. It's each individual, like they kind of know where that is, and it's like in order to grow, you kind of have to go into it.
Yeah,
and how you're able to navigate that in your life is like kind of like that's your mission.
Yeah, I'm coming back to the safe space. Find your safe space to address that issue and then grow from there.
So if people go to your website, and we do have I'll mention the actual QR code again. So if people take their phone, they scan that, they'll go right to your URL. So if people go to the URL, what do they find there?
So it's a checklist of the 10 essential ingredients you need in your language learning journey. So a lot of the ingredients we talked about today, like the motivation enjoying the journey, occasions to like the 80-20 rule between passive and active learning. So it's just a little checklist of everything you need in your language learning journey to be efficient and successful. And also 4 questions like needs analysis question. You're learning a language. At this point, what do you need to get you started to get on that path of improvement?
Well, thank you for being here today. And I encourage people to take that QR code and dive into it. And if you don't like QR codes, you can still take the URL that's below, and that's going to be fully activated. It's going to be clickable on the platforms that we're on. Right now, we're on LinkedIn, YouTube. We will be on all the major platforms where you can listen to a podcast like Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio, Amazon, many more. We'll create a landing page for everybody, and you'll get that by tomorrow. So you can share that with everybody, and they can figure out which platform they like, and they can check it out or listen to it or watch it on any of those platforms. But I want to thank you again for being on the show today.
Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.